An Corla, bhawatla mo bhuicas a gháil hic páirtí glas agus páirtí an Lochdaibhre a sucht an bille seo a chur os ar cór. Tá gá pránach leis an mille agus ní bhaid drogel ar bithar am a haciacht a chóirt don villa. Ken Corla, I'm not sure if I'm sharing, so I'll keep going. But I was to share with one of my colleagues, but I'll happily take the I'll happily take the 7 minutes because it's something I'm passionate about myself. I very much welcome the bill. I welcome it particularly because it has support from across both sides of the House. I thank the Labour Party and the Green Party for bringing it. I disagree with Deputy Howland that this is new politics is not working. I think it is working. I think it has worked on every occasion since we were elected. There are lots of new voices in the Dáil talking about different topics, giving voices to those topics, and the vast majority that Labour had with Fine Gael on the last occasion, I asked myself why they didn't bring in this legislation, but there you are. I'm a little disappointed, I have to say, and I hate to say this when the Minister is not in the room, with his speech. It was very positive to start with. Very positive to start with. He only dealt with one section of the bill, which was in relation to the deposit charge. He didn't deal with the plastic side whatsoever, other than making it a statement that 2 million cups are disposed of daily. He didn't deal with that at all. And then he took one particular example of Scotland in relation to cost and so on. I think perhaps I would have preferred if he made a shorter speech and actually placed it in context. And each time I stand up in the Dáil, I make the point that this is the last Dáil that can take any positive steps in relation to climate change. We are the last Dáil to do that. This is simply one tiny step in making those changes, that we would say we're going to stop and ban plastic cups and plates. Indeed, that has been done by France, and it's significant that the Minister didn't raise France, and I know Deputy Ryan has made reference to France. They have brought in this legislation. It has been passed. It's going to come into effect on January 2020. So there's an example. And then quite extraordinary, at the end of his speech, he talks about that he's worried that it might go against any outright ban on a product might lead to a breach of the free movement provisions of the Treaty on the Functioning of the European Union. Now, of everything that's in those few pages, I think that part is the most frightening and the most ridiculous, when we have a country like France, which is one of the major parties in the EU, having already banned plastic cups and plates, and that's on top of a complete ban on plastic bags itself, like other countries. We've just put a levy on it, and indeed at Kiancorla, in relation to that levy, it was very effective, and prior to its introduction, 1.2 billion plastic bags were used before 2002, and there was a 90% reduction just following the levy. Can you imagine what would happen if we got rid of plastic full stop? By the year 2050, and I know Sinn Féin have mentioned this, by 2050 we will have more plastic in our sea than fish. I think that's worth repeating, really. We'll have more plastic in our sea than fish, and 99% of all seabirds will have ingested plastic. So we have no choice. We're under an obligation to actually lead and do something. And actually the poorer countries and the most vulnerable, who have done the least to contribute to climate change, will suffer rather than ourselves. And again, I've mentioned Galway, and I'm sure that on occasions you tire of hearing me, but it's actually a very significant example of what was possible. And I say what was possible because Deputy Barry has raised this matter in relation to profit and non-profit. And in Galway, when the refuse service was under the local authority, we reached the highest recycling rates in the country. We didn't have a pay-by-weight. We had no charge to start with, and people recycled. Then we had a flat rate, and people recycled. And then foolishly a pay-by-weight, and people still recycled. So under all of those three regimes, what the people told us was, we want to recycle. We are active citizens who want to be involved. We do not need to be punished. We do not need lectures. And they actually led us, and they led us by the nose. And we reached 70%. Unimaginable figure. We recycled 70% in a pilot project, and on a regular basis 56% diversion from landfill. And the reward to the people of Galway was to privatise that service. And now we have illegal dumping, and we have a citizenship who feel absolutely disempowered. So if there are lessons to be learned, and I think it would be great if we could learn them, that Galway was a great example of how to go forward with a non-punitive system where people wanted to actively engage. And on top of that, we had a cash for cans. Not a cash for ash, but a cash for cans, where we encouraged people to come back, and if they had 100 aluminium cans in a plastic bag, we gave them a figure. Do you know what happened? The system was overwhelmed with the response from people. The system couldn't cope with the amount of people that came to deliver back cans, pick them up in the parks and on the streets. And you know what happened after that? The system did everything possible to undermine it. They said people were misusing it, that shop owners or pubs were coming forward and so on. And they failed to embrace the fact that no matter where it came from, people wanted to bring back the cans and recycle. So I'll finish by saying I've absolutely no hesitation in supporting this bill. Certainly the details have to be worked out. I don't think there are many details to be worked out in relation to the prohibition on plastic cups and plates, but in relation to the deposit scheme, the details have to be worked out. That's why we have a committee system. And finally, maybe we could start in the Dail. I checked before I came in here to see where the cups recyclable. And I'm told they're not, so subject to correction. Maybe we could start there at Ciancorla, fwy do Cianrocht, agus rud I dhéanamh an sin, go Jonach, agus fáil ré lena copán agus na plátaí atá an sin, mar hampla agus mar eisiomlár ar an míle maithag.
Okay. Déanamh rud cinnta faoi sin, mar mágad